Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Mark Lynn. Namaskar. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israeli Gaza proposal allows return of all hostages, elimination of Hamas. Time for this war to end. Joe Biden pushes for Israel-Gaza truce. OpenAI claims Israeli firm tried to disrupt Lok Sabha polls, pushed anti-BJP pro-Congress content. India's IT minister calls it a very dangerous threat to Indian democracy. Finally, the seventh and last phase of India's general elections is underway across 57 seats, including Prime Minister Narendra Modi's seat of Varanasi. Voting percentage 40% at 1 p.m. US President Joe Biden has unveiled a three-phase Israeli proposal to end the conflict in Gaza. Speaking at the White House on Friday, Biden said that the proposal would comprise three phases, which include a full and complete ceasefire, the withdrawal of IDF forces from populated areas, and the exchange of hostages for Palestinian prisoners. The US President called on Hamas.
Comprehensive new proposal. It's a roadmap to an enduring ceasefire and the release of all hostages. This proposal has been transmitted by Qatar to Hamas. This new proposal has three phases. The first phase would last for 6 weeks. Here's what it would include: a full and complete ceasefire, a withdrawal of Israeli forces from all populated areas of Gaza, release of a number of hostages, including women, the elderly, the wounded, in exchange for release of hundreds of Palestinian prisoners.
The US President has called on Hamas terrorists to agree to the Israeli proposal on the Gaza conflict, saying that this is the most effective way to end the ongoing conflict.
If Hamas fails to fulfill its commitments under the deal, Israel can resume military operations. But Egypt and Qatar have assured me, and they are continuing to work to ensure that Hamas doesn't do that. The United States will help ensure that Israel lives up to their obligations as well. It's time to begin this new stage. For the hostages to come home, for Israel to be secure, for the suffering to stop. It's time for this war to end, for the day after to begin.
The new proposal outlined by Biden on Friday consists of three phases. The first phase would involve a 6-week ceasefire, during which Israeli forces would withdraw from Gaza and hostages, including the elderly and women, would be exchanged for hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. Palestinian civilians would return to Gaza, including northern Gaza, and 600 trucks would deliver humanitarian aid to Gaza daily. In the second phase, Hamas and Israel would negotiate the terms of a permanent end to hostilities. The ceasefire will still continue as long as the negotiations continue, the president said. And the third phase would involve a major reconstruction plan for Gaza. Hamas has meanwhile released a statement reacting positively on the Gaza truce proposal. Hamas said that it was ready to deal positively and constructively with any proposal based on a permanent ceasefire, full withdrawal from the Gaza Strip, reconstruction, and the return of displaced to all their places of residence, and the completion of a serious prisoner exchange deal. And Shubhendu Ghosh now joins us from the newsroom with more perspective on the story. Shubhendu, how serious is this attempt at peace? Does the plan actually have workable goals on both sides?
Mark, looking at it broadly, it does address the most critical concerns at the moment. First would be having ceasefire immediately in the conflict zone of Gaza, in Rafah and elsewhere, to ensure that the humanitarian crisis does not go from bad to worse. It is already in dire states. It does offer something to both sides. To Israel, it talks about the release of hostages, first the women and the elderly. To the Palestinian sides, it talks about the immediate ceasefire, as we mentioned, and also a certain roadmap for reconstruction as well. So there is something for both sides to ponder over. As you mentioned, Hamas has sent positive signals about moving ahead with this plan, but Israel, Prime Minister Netanyahu is very clear about the goals in this conflict for Israel, and one of the goals is to eliminate Hamas, and that problematizes the whole issue at the moment. How do you then negotiate with an adversary who you seek to eliminate at the first place?
Yes, indeed, Shubhendu. How serious is that threat of elimination of Hamas? I mean, first of all, it also shows that Israel doesn't even recognize Hamas. And how can it negotiate with a force that, with a group that it doesn't recognize? And it's also threatening to eliminate them.
Those issues do make the entire matter conflict complex, Mark. And it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu means what he says. The past nearly 8 months of the conflict we've seen, despite mounting international pressure from the United Nations, from humanitarian groups, and from their own principal ally, United States. Prime Minister Netanyahu and the Israeli forces have been very clear about their operations in Gaza. As we speak, the operations continue in Rafah. There are, of course, these viral videos also of all eyes on Rafah, the growing criticism of if the response of Israel has been disproportionate. But despite all of that, Prime Minister Netanyahu, with single-minded focus, has been going after the Hamas fighters, and he says that will continue till the end of Hamas. That also puts to question what Secretary Biden of the United States spoke about, that Israel also has to work towards a certain roadmap, post-war plan, and that negotiations must happen now, without which the entire region would be thrown into chaos. So the manner in which Israel is approaching the peace plan, it does put into question what the days ahead would look like.
Indeed, Shubhendu, also there must be much pressure on President Biden to push this plan through. How is the U.S., the domestic political scene there affecting these negotiations?
Most certainly, Mark, the kind of push that we see from the Biden administration to be able to achieve a lasting peace is visible from this peace plan that President Biden has presented. President Biden, his leadership, his administration are under pressure as leader of the free world. Their perspective, the manner in which they approach this conflict, the manner in which they address the concerns of humanitarian crisis in the region are of significant value. Remember, this is the election year for United States for President Biden. This is a time when he would like to project the effectiveness of his leadership, the manner in which he can stand by his ally like Israel, but also nudge them into right action when the time comes for it. In that sense, it would be important for President Biden to be able to achieve the results that he seeks. Remember, the beginning of his tenure was marked by the withdrawal of US forces from Afghanistan, and the manner in which it was carried out brought him great criticism. He wouldn't want to conclude his tenure as president on that note.
Okay, we leave it there. Thank you very much, Shubhendu Ghosh, for putting that into perspective for us. Let's get you the latest on the world's largest election in India. Well, polling is underway for the final phase of India's parliamentary elections. Voters across 57 constituencies in 8 states and union territories are eligible to exercise their franchise. Voting is taking place on all 13 seats of Punjab, 4 of Himachal Pradesh, 13 constituencies of Uttar Pradesh, 9 in West Bengal, 8 in Bihar, 6 in Odisha, and 3 seats in Jharkhand, besides the union territory of Chandigarh. The voting began at 7 in the morning and will conclude at 6 in the evening local time. Now, polling for the remaining 42 assembly constituencies of the State Assembly in Odisha are also taking place, and counting of votes will take place simultaneously for all these seats on the 4th of June. As the largest festival of India's democracy is set to conclude with the final phase of polling today, a total of 904 candidates are in the fray in this phase, and prominent among them are Prime Minister Narendra Modi, a senior BJP leader, and party leaders Anurag Thakur as well as Ravi Shankar Prasad. Now, from the Congress side, it's the Congress leader Manish Tiwari and Vikramaditya Singh, and the RJ leader Prasar Bharati. The Trinamool Congress, its leader Abhishek Banerjee is also in the fray. The voter turnout for this final phase at 11 o'clock in the morning. These figures are kind of at 11 o'clock, let me tell you that. They were 24% in Bihar, and in fact over 39.31%. This figure is from 1 p.m. 39.31% is 1 p.m. That is in Uttar Pradesh. And also at 1 p.m., Himachal Pradesh had recorded 48.63%, and in Odisha it was nearly 37.64%. This is reported at 1 p.m. So we have figures only till 11 o'clock at Bihar. Right. So Amritpal Singh will join us a little while later, but we have with us Ashutosh Mishra, who's joining us from Bhubaneswar in Odisha with more. Ashutosh, what is the voting percentage like in Odisha? And, considering that it's also an assembly election, what are the issues on the voters' minds?
Yeah, to start with, the voting was slightly sluggish, polling was slightly sluggish. Because, a heat wave is sweeping the state. So it's terribly hot and humid also. So initially till 9 o'clock, the percentage was around 9 something, around 10. And then it picked up. Around 11 o'clock, the percentage rose to 22%. And by 1, it was around 38%. So it's picking up. And the vote percentage was down to begin with, was mainly because of heat. And we are having, in Orissa, we are having both Assembly and Lok Sabha elections. 6 Lok Sabha constituencies being held in 6 Lok Sabha constituencies. 5 of them are coastal constituencies. 1 Mayurbanj, it's a North Orissa constituency, it's a tribal-dominated constituency. And then we have 42 Assembly constituencies. And some very important leaders are in the fray in this round. And they include BJP's National Vice President, Mr. Baijan Panda, who is contesting from Kendrapada. And in Balasore, we have 2 former union ministers, BJP's Pratap Sarangi and Mr. Shrikant Jena of the Congress. And contest in all these constituencies is very keen this time, mainly between BJP and BJD, Biju Janata Dal. Prime Minister himself led the campaign in all these constituencies. He has held, I think, more than 6-7 rallies. His last rally was in Mayurbanj, where he raised the issue of Chief Minister's health, which has become a major issue in this election. Yes. He also raised the issue of development of Orissa. He said that Orissa has not seen the kind of development it should have seen with the government which has been there for last 24 years. So he has made that a major issue. And BJD has responded in a similar way. BJD says that for them also development is an issue and Orissa pride is an issue, but they see it from a different perspective. They say that Orissa has developed tremendously under the Chief Minister, and it is for the first time under BJD's rule that the state has come to be recognized both as a developed state, both at the national level and at an international level. So these are the major issues in these elections, and these elections are being very keenly fought. Prime Minister has himself led BJP's campaign, and Chief Minister has led BJD's campaign. Both sides have issues, and both sides are clashing very fiercely in these elections. Even today, have been reports of stray violence, but everywhere the things are under control, and polling right now is going on smooth.
Okay, we leave there. Thanks very much, Ashutosh Mishra, for joining us from Odisha, from Bhubaneswar. Let's move across to Amritpal Singh, who is now joining us. Joining us from Punjab. Amrit, so the entire state going to the polls, so put that into perspective for us first about the enthusiasm amongst the voters and, how seriously they're taking this election.
Okay, Mark, I was in Punjab in the morning. I've just come into Chandigarh. So what I'll do is I'll step out of the frame to show you what the scenario here in Chandigarh is. You can see long queues. I'll ask my camera person to pan for you. Long queues. It's about 2:15. It's very, very hot, around 47, 48 degrees temperature here. Despite that, people coming out in large numbers. I've covered elections in other states, so have you. We generally see a dip in the voter turnout in the afternoon. People generally come in the morning and in the evening to vote because it's relatively cooler. But Chandigarh defies the national trend. Despite being an urban constituency, it generally votes very high. So that is what the scenario here is. Now, coming back to your question on Punjab. I was there in Anandpur Sahib this morning. Punjab is voting close to about 48% and 38% voting in Punjab. So Punjab relatively votes less. If you look at 2019, the vote in Punjab was about 66%. Given the voting there right now till 1 p.m., that's the figure till 1 p.m., one would expect the voting would just about touch that figure, which is if in 2019 that was below the national average. But yes, despite the heat, people are coming out and voting. But the kind of enthusiasm that you see in Chandigarh is not seen in urban areas of Punjab, but rural areas in Punjab. Our rural voters are coming out in large numbers and voting.
We believe it there. Thank you very much. Amritpal Singh reporting from Chandigarh. Still to come here in this edition of DD India Live. Japanese and Chinese defense ministers meet on the sidelines of the Shangri-La dialogue in Singapore. And the flood situation in Assam gets worse. The number of affected districts has risen to 11. Also, 14-time winner Real Madrid will take on Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League final.
The marriage between tech and tradition is what farmers need across the globe. Tech shows us ways to deal with new challenges in a world, while traditional knowledge and varieties show us how to withstand these challenges.
Some people in society look negatively at a woman if she steps outside of her home.
Do you know 700 different crop problems on 30 different crops? Diagnostic, that's tough for a human to do.
Big food manufacturers are getting like the biggest share. Farmers and farm workers, which are like in the bottom of this value chain.
When a volcanic eruption injects ash, dust and gases into the atmosphere, into the stratosphere, they form sulfate aerosols, which the Earth's rotation helps spread around the globe.
You're watching DD India Live. I'm Mark Lynn. The US-based AI firm OpenAI has said that they've disrupted actions of an Israeli commercial company trying to influence India's general elections. OpenAI said that it's committed to enforcing policies that prevent abuse and the improving of transparency around AI-generated content. This is especially true with respect to detecting and disrupting covert influence operations which attempt to manipulate public opinion or influence political outcomes without revealing the true identity or intentions of the actors behind it. The firm said that in the last 3 months it has disrupted 5 covert I/O operations that in fact had sought to use OpenAI models in support of deceptive activity across the internet. The AI firm said a commercial company in Israel, which is called Stoic, has generated content about the Gaza conflict as well, and to a lesser extent, the Hiderdrut Trade Unions Organization in Israel and the Indian elections. So OpenAI nicknamed this Operation Zero Zeno for the founder of the Stoic School of Philosophy, and also to reflect on the low levels of engagement that its various campaigns have attracted. OpenAI had called Zero Zeno for higher Israel threat, actor posting anti-Hamas and anti-Qatar, anti-Qatar, in fact, pro-Israel, also anti-BJP and pro-Histadrut content on the internet. India's Union Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar has reacted to this revelation made by OpenAI and has called it very dangerous for Indian democracy. In a social media post, Chandrasekhar said, and I quote, "It's absolutely clear that and obvious that BJP for India was and is the target of influence operations, misinformation and foreign interference being done by and or on behalf of some Indian political parties. This is a very dangerous threat to our democracy. It is clear vested interests in India and outside are clearly driving this, and this needs to be deeply scrutinized and investigated and exposed." U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin on Saturday tried to refocus attention on China's threat in the Indo-Pacific, seeking to alleviate concerns that conflicts in the Ukraine and Gaza have detracted from America's security commitments in Asia. Austin, who was speaking at the annual Shangri-La Dialogue, which is a security summit in Singapore, met his Chinese counterpart Dong Jun on Friday in a bid to cool the friction over issues from Taiwan to China's military activity in the South China Sea. The Japanese Defense Minister Minoru Kihara met with his French counterpart Sébastien Lecornu. This happened on the sidelines of the Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore. The Japanese Defense Minister Kihara and his Chinese counterpart Yun, they held bilateral talks on Saturday on the sidelines of the Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore. Speaking to Dong during this meeting, Kihara addressed the security concerns over China's increasing military activities in the sea and airspace surrounding Japan. The Shangri-La Dialogue Security Summit in Singapore runs till Sunday, and Kihara will deliver a speech in the plenary session about the regional security and challenges on Saturday. The South Korean Defense Minister Shin Wok-sik called for China, in fact, to take a more active role in denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula. Shin said that South Korea trusts the Global Non-Proliferation Treaty (NPT) regime, and that a stronger U.S.-South Korean alliance is the answer to North Korea's nuclear development.
It's true that China made efforts for the denuclearization of Korean Peninsula. However, the outcome was not very satisfactory. I hope China will continue to make more constructive and active efforts in ensuring stability and denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula.
In the run-up to International Yoga Day 2024, Yoga Mahotsav 2024, High Commission of India launched a 3-week-long celebration at the Indira Gandhi Cultural Centre in Dhaka. This year, the main events in Bangladesh will be held at Surawadi International Indoor Stadium, Mirpur, Dhaka on the 21st of June. The theme for this year is Yoga for Women's Empowerment. The purpose is to spread yoga as a global movement with a focus on improving women's health and well-being, as well as world peace and health. The flood situation in Assam has gotten worse as the number of flood-affected districts has risen to 11. In fact, 560 villages and 25 residential areas are currently underwater. More than 300,000 people have been affected by these floods. In the latest report released on Friday by the Assam State Disaster Management Authority, 6 people have lost their lives. The floods have inundated areas in Chachar, in Hailakandi, in West Karbi Anglong, Nagaon and in Hajoy. These are districts in Assam, disrupting communication and transportation. Let's get you the sports news now. The stage is set for a mega UFO Champions League final, and this is as the 14-time champions, Real Madrid, are going to take on Germany's Borussia Dortmund. It's a summit clash at the Wembley Stadium. The Los Blancos will start as the favourites in this biggest match of the season, and Dortmund will also be the dark horse. They have got past teams like Atletico Madrid and Paris Saint-Germain to make it to the final. And it's going to be the last club match for Madrid legend Toni Kroos, who has announced his retirement from, this is after the Euros. Meanwhile, the veteran Marco Ruiz is also going to bid adieu to Dortmund after the UCL final. Team India is all set to play their first and only warm-up game in preparation for the T20 World Cup on Saturday against Bangladesh at the Nassau County Cricket Stadium in New York. India last played an international game in this format in January this year during the home series against Afghanistan. Captain Rohit Sharma and the head coach Rahul Dravid will be keen on assessing the pitch conditions ahead of their opener against Ireland on June 5, followed by a mouth-watering clash against Pakistan on June 9. The Paris 2024 Olympic torch was lit on Friday on top of Mont Saint-Michel Abbey, which is one of France's most visited tourist attractions. The torch travelled from Cherbourg in Cotentin and Grenville to the UNESCO World Heritage Site, with the torch bearers including the French astronaut Thomas Pesquet. Now, some 1,500 torch bearers, in fact 1,500 torches are going to be used. They will be used for this Olympic relay, which began on May 9 and is going to conclude on July 26. Around 11,000 torch bearers in total are going to be carrying these flames, and their final destination is Paris. That's all we have in this edition of DD India Live. Let's know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those of you on the go, you can get the latest news from India and across the world in the DD India mobile app. The app is available both on Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on your screen and download it now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Mark Lynn. From all of us here in Delhi, thank you very much for watching DD India Live. Namaskar.
The marriage between